Today I will show you guys the dungeon build I'm using for Monk. First of all, I want to say that I'm not going crazy with the training dummy numbers when it comes to dungeon builds because my Reforge bonus and legendary gems are set up for PvP activities. And I don't have resources to have separate gems for PvE builds. I would rather spend those resources to improve my PvP builds since PvE activities are very easy to manage. That's why I'm trying to create builds that don't require any specific Reforge bonuses, familiars, or legendary gems. If you are mainly focused on PvE, don't worry, I have a recommendation for you. Go check out Orot's video. He has a very in-depth dungeon build video for monks where he explains his setup very well. But if you are here for a more casual build that you can use right away, let's continue. Actually, before we move on, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And if you are feeling a little generous, leave a like as well. When it comes to dungeon builds, I don't really care about dummy numbers. I just go and test the build solo in dungeons. For example, if I'm able to complete Namari and Tomb of Ahir without any issues, and when I say issues, I mean killing the bosses at their first stage, then the build is good enough for me. And most of us usually do random dungeons with others, so you are going to have some help when you actually farm dungeons, but I like to be able to carry the party if others are not doing anything. That's why I test builds like this. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I do it. Plus, you can use this build in Terror Rifts and Oblivion Pillars as well. I mean, if you are not trying hard, it works in Challenge Rifts too, but like I said, if you are trying to complete rifts above your combat rating, it might not be that good. Now, as always, let's start with the skills we are using for the build. First, we have 7-sided strike, and we just have one essence for it, which causes our primary attacks to conjure a spirit ally that deals damage to our target and also damages any enemies within its path. Next, we have the signature skill of the monk. As you can guess, it is Mystic Allies. We are amplifying it with 2 essences. Don't worry, I will talk about all of the legendary items in detail when we are done with skills. One other skill we are using is Exploding Palm. This one is here because it helps us trigger our set item and it gives us some mobility to move around in the dungeons. Lastly, we have Mystic Strike with tons of essences that turn this skill into a summoner. Thanks to the Pan's essence, we are using Mystic Strike as a summoner. And with the extra charge offhand, we are able to create 4 summons in the blink of time. Of course, if you have Mystic Strike on your setup, you need to use one of the shoulder essences that gives us a significant buff. And in this one, I'm using primary attack speed shoulders, which helps us to increase our overall damage output. And for the primary attack, we have the good old Fists of Thunder without any essences. Now, let's move on to set items. For this setup, I'm using 4 pieces of V2s to get that increased beneficial effect duration and attack speed bonuses. They are really crucial for this build, especially attack speed, which really helps us. And for the other 4 pieces, I have Gloom's Guide. Before I engage with the enemies, I'm using Exploding Palm to trigger attack speed and critical hit chance bonuses from this set. But instead of this, you might try to use the Shepherd set as well since we have tons of summons. I didn't try that myself, but on paper it should work. Now, let's go over all of the legendary items we have in this build. For the headpiece, we are using Malefic Apparition. Mystic Allies also increase your critical hit chance by 7.6% for each spirit ally active, stacking up to 4 times. For the chest, we have Breath of Incense. 7-sided strike now triggers the Exploding Palm explosion. For the shoulders, we have the Mystic Strike essence called Feline Defiance. Mystic Strike now also increases your primary attack speed by 30% for 6.4 seconds. For the pants, we have Lingering Incense. Mystic Strike now summons a spirit ally that rushes forward, dealing damage to the first enemy it hits before unleashing a barrage of attacks. For the first main hand, we have Tenebrous Grasp. 7-sided strike now puts you in a trance, causing your primary attacks to conjure a spirit ally that unleashes a powerful strike on your target, dealing damage and also damaging any enemies within its path. This state lasts for 7 seconds. And for the second main hand, we are using Divine Muster. Mystic Allies now summons 4 spirit allies to fight by your side for 6 seconds, each dealing damage with their primary attack. Lastly, we have our 2 offhands. For the first one, we are using Obstruction Omniscience. Exploding Palm now dashes forward, dealing damage to enemies in your path and causing them to burn, dealing damage every second for 5 seconds. For the second one, we have Harsh Truth. Mystic Strike maximum charges increased by 1. Well, that's all you need to know about the legendary items. Like I said at the beginning, I'm trying to find and use builds that don't require anything special to use. If you have a build like this that doesn't require anything extra, Let us know in the comments section so we can check it out. By the way, I saw this build on my clanmate Ketamov and I changed only a few little things, but big shout out to him. I'm not going to talk about legendary gems or reforge bonuses on this one because I didn't change anything in my setup to make this build work. So that's all for this one. I hope you enjoyed the build. Thanks for tuning in and take care.